G'day guys, how's it going? And welcome to our second hardcore tips video on the channel. In this video, we are going to be looking at an example of beginning a new hardcore world, and this will include my way of starting and things that I prioritize and look for in the world. Alright, let's jump into it. For this world, we got a nice plains biome spawn. The spawn biome can really affect the way the world starts, and in this case we have a nice open area that you can see in almost all directions. There's minimum hiding spots for mobs, so like in Dark Oak and Spruce Forests, they can be hiding around trees, especially Dark Oak because the light levels are quite low. The first thing I focus on, past getting starter tools anyway, is surveying the area around spawn. I look for sheep, food, villages, deserts or savanna biomes, and ocean and ruin portals. So as you can see, we're just coming up to a ruin portal right now. And they do contain things in those chests that sort of set you up for starting the portal, but they can also contain some things like gold nuggets, like what we've got here, some obsidian, and even sometimes some golden tools, which aren't the best, but they're good at the starting session. Each of these things above, apart from sheep and food, can have key resources in them to help raise survivability chances, but we'll talk about them a little later. An early focus in your world should be some sheep or a village, as you're really going to need a bed. This is going to make it so that you can sleep through the night and avoid those nighttime mobs, which is fantastic early game. Over the course of the 2 to 3 days of exploration, try and gather as many resources as you can. So I try to look out for sugarcane, berries, seeds for farms. So this could be pumpkin, watermelon, or if you end up finding a village, you could get carrots and potatoes as well. I know they're not seeds, but they're used to plant in. And look for any other above ground resources. These are amazing at the start, so like above ground coal and iron as well. If you do come across a village, make sure to take all the seeds in the farms and the hay bales as well. Use these hay bales to make wheat into bread, and you'll have a great source of early game food. I think in this world, once we find a village, we get around about 2, maybe 1.5 to 2 stacks of bread, which is absolutely fantastic if you haven't got a steady source of food coming through. So after the expedition, I begin setting up a small starter base at spawn. In this case, I tried something risky and built in a cave system. And as you'll see in a little bit, I ran into danger pretty much straight away. All that's really needed for a safe starter base is 4 walls, a roof, and a door. So don't stress about how it looks. You'll be able to build something fantastic after you beat the Ender Dragon and get your shulkers and all your upgraded stuff. In this case here, we had 3 creepers, which is absolutely crazy, come out of the cave system. And what I tried to do was just lure them out into the open, because it's much less risky fighting them out in the open than in the cave system, because you don't know what's behind you. You don't know what's actually going to happen. Now, the one problem with doing a starter base in a cave system is you're always going to have mobs and whatnot spawning in the area that you haven't lit up. So I will eventually have to go back into that cave and light up as much as I can, just to make sure we can sleep safely of a night time. Once I have my small base set up, I try to focus on early game farms for both food and trades. So one thing that I really tried to do in my hardcore world is think about what I'm going to need later and try and get those things happening early so that I can start collecting, like mass collecting all the stuff that I need. The farms that I start with are sugarcane, wheat, carrots, potato, and pumpkins, if you've found any. If you haven't, just leave a space for them, and once you find those sorts of things, you can then plant them later. I also try and get some animals started for food. Chickens are a good start, as you only really need seeds to get them breeding, and you can get the seeds from the grass on the ground, so it's not really a problem. Once I have food and farms done, I look to go mining. Now, in this world, I haven't followed this rule, but I usually try to have my mine entrance either in my base or as close to as possible. This is so you don't have to make that panicked run back to the base after losing track of time. There's been heaps of times where I've been down mining and come back up and it's nighttime, and if you don't have your bed on you for whatever reason, you've got to run back to the base. And in this case, you can see how far away the mine is from the base, and that's a fair bit to run, especially of a nighttime early game when you don't have too much armor on either. So this was a little bit silly, but there is a reason why I did this. So to make this area a little bit safer though, I did try and make a nice little fenced off area around the mine and cover it up above. So this way, if we do come out of a nighttime, we can see what's going on. We can see if it is a safe run back to the base or whether we just go back down and start mining again. Eventually in this world, I will need to create a room to place a storage and bed underneath, so it's just a safe experience. Once the mine is safe, then I begin to dig down, usually to Y level 11. So I know a lot of people have different preferences. I like Y level 11 because you're above the lava. The one thing I will say though with this is try and mine about 2 blocks away from where, like what the block you're aiming at. This will ensure that you're not flat up against the wall and that you can see what's down below under the block in front of you. I've seen it many times where someone has been mining and they've been just holding W while mining and they don't see that there's no block underneath them, like directly in front of them, and they just fall straight into lava. It's quite sad. I usually try and focus on finding iron, but obviously diamonds are a welcome sight. With iron, you can get geared up a lot quicker and have that basic set of armor set up so that you're not taking, you know, full amount of damage. Once I have enough iron, 34 usually should do, I make armor, tools, and a shield. So in hardcore mode, shields are a key tool, especially early on. Try to have this equipped as much as you can until you get enchanted netherite armor. And even then, still with enchanted netherite armor, there's situations where you should be using a shield regardless. So after we gathered some animals, we were lucky enough to run into some illagers, who usually begin to spawn after about 100 minutes in game. In this encounter, you can see how helpful the shield is. You can see that I use the shield to sort of walk around them to gain hits. They do hit each other, and sometimes the arrows can ricochet off the shield and hit them as well, doing damage, which is absolutely amazing. And it makes pretty light work of these guys. Back before I used shields, I found these guys extremely difficult and just really didn't know how to deal with them. After beating these guys, try to drink a bucket of milk straight away before going absolutely anywhere. This is to get rid of that bad omen effect that you'll get from killing the illager captain, which is the guy with the little flag on his back. If you get too close to a village with this, it will trigger a raid, which is a whole different can of worms that you really do not want to open early on. I'll be covering this in a more in-depth video on illagers and raids that should be coming out very soon. Now with armor and food set up, the main focus now is to get equipment ready to take on a nether fortress, so that we can get our Eye of Enders and the Potion of Weakness so that we can cure some zombie villagers and get those cheap trades. Whilst on our adventure, we find 2 sunken shipwrecks, and these are absolutely amazing for early game resources. They provide things like early game iron, sometimes even diamonds, but the key thing is the treasure map. One tip whilst in these ships are to use the doors for breathing. Doors underwater provide an air pocket, which can be a really helpful thing while deep sea diving. One thing to note is that in some cases, there are drowns that spawn around these sunken ships, depending on whether they've got the underwater monuments there. Not the ocean monuments, but the ruined monument looking things. And using a shield, it's not too bad fighting a trident drown, but they are still extremely deadly early game, and I have lost a couple of worlds to these guys. We eventually find a village, and from this I try to gather as many resources as I can, so wheat, job blocks, and any seeds or food I can find. After that, we gather some obsidian and venture to the nether for the first time. Now this can always be scary, but I just try and take it as slow as I possibly can. Now our spawn was actually pretty good. Usually I just get basalt deltas and I hate those things, but we got a crimson forest this time. The only problem with the crimson forest is that there are hoglins and piglins here straight away. Piglins aren't that big of a deal because we already do have some gold, but if you don't have gold, make sure to try and get some. If not, try and mine some in the nether. The hoglins, on the other hand, we have to put up a little bit of a cobblestone wall around the gate so that we can prevent any unwanted damage from those guys, because believe me, they hit hard. After this, we try to find the village we just found, but it turns out we find one a little bit closer, and we also find 2 desert temples along the way, which is awesome because they're really good for strange resources. Things like saddles and horse armor and enchantment books and even gapples, as well as occasionally a enchanted golden apple, which is rare, but it can happen. I try to light up temples before going for the loot and make sure there are no mobs around. This is just to prevent that standard clip you see on Twitch of people going down into the temples and a creeper falling on top of them. I take my time to get down to the loot area and carefully make sure to get rid of the pressure plate and sort of grab whatever I can out of the chests and also the TNT that's underneath the sand blocks. My plan now is to connect the village that we've just found with the spawn base through the nether and start transporting some villagers for a trading hall that we're going to be making there. I try to take my time in the nether as much as I can, because usually rushing can cause early game losses, and the nether is bad, but it's much better if you just take your time. Make sure you make safe tunnels and make good decisions while you're in there. If you take the time to make these safe paths, you'll be thankful for the less stress that you've got while trying to traverse in the nether. Now, dealing with villagers is an absolute pain, but having them close to your base reduces the travel time. And for me, I like to have everything close by, so that because travel time just provides more chances for damage and death. And the longer you're away from your safe base, the more risky things you've got to deal with. Preferably, I would like to use a minecart and rails, but at this point in time, we didn't have the resources, so a boat was fine. Once I have the villagers transported, I try to set up trades. So I usually go for either a Fletcher or a Mason and a farmer. Now, farmers are pretty much essential for food anyway. Eventually, you're going to get golden carrots, the trade for golden carrots, and pumpkins and melons. And once you cure these villagers, pumpkins and melons are 1 emerald apiece, and the golden carrots are 1 emerald for 3. So the trade is really, really good. Eventually, we'll be putting these 2 guys that we get into a village breeder and just getting villagers to make a trading hall. And that is all we have time for in this episode. So next episode, we'll look at enchanting, trades, nether fortress, curing villagers, and Eyes of Ender to get us towards the stronghold and eventually the Ender Dragon. Hopefully you've found some useful information throughout this video. This is just an example of how I start hardcore worlds, and I understand that not every spawn will be the same as this. Different spawns require different tactics, so ones that are similar to the plains biome is the acacia biome, which is the savanna, and the desert biome. The only thing you've really got to worry about in the desert is the husks, which are strange. I haven't really had to deal with them too much, so I don't really have any tips for that, but they're different. Otherwise, other biomes you start off in, so like spruce forest or the mountain area or dark oak forests, ice biomes, they've all got different starts, and you might get lucky with some of them and find things you need straight away. You might not get so lucky and have something like a diamond drought where you just don't find any diamonds for ages. So I get that there's different ways to start the game off. I'm just giving one example of how I would do a plain start. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you have anything that you do in your hardcore worlds that you see as an essential part of your run, please comment them down below, and we can see if we get a little bit of a resource happening that can provide players with different tips and tricks. That would be absolutely amazing. So if we can get that, I'll be putting that as a Word document into my Discord. If you haven't joined that, I'm pretty sure the link is down in the description. So come across and join that. Otherwise, guys, I shall see you in the next Hardcore Help episode. Good luck in those hardcore worlds, and bye for now.